What's up, bro? Come on in.
Hey,
Tap into good health.
I never head out without my New York City
Tap water.
hot outside. I urge every New Yorker
To drink up.
Tap water is the best.
Doubt.
Aren't you happy that our benevolent and kind and all-knowing government put fluoride in our water? Aren't you happy they found such a good use for industrial waste? Sure, it might build up in our brains, but at least it keeps our teeth safe, right? At a bar, and a guy comes up to you in a white lab coat and sprinkles something into your drink, and you ask him, hey, what are you doing? And he tells you, he's from the government, and he's here to help. He says, despite the fact that fluoride accumulates in your pineal gland in your brain, and despite the fact that there seems to be a link between lower IQ and fluoride, it's still okay because it's good for your teeth. He says that the CDC labeled water fluoridation to be one of the greatest health achievements of the 20th century. The same CDC who I have a deep grievance with. You see, when the pandemic raged across the US and across the globe, the CDC had data showing that obesity rates were strongly linked to fatalities caused by that disease. However, they did not try to raise awareness about that at all. They could have had a campaign saying that obesity is strongly linked to that disease, which I shall not name, and that they should reduce obesity rates as a way to fight against the disease. But they chose not to do that. Instead, they promoted regulation which caused the shutdown and the bankruptcy of your small business. Diabetes, obesity, and cancer rates. The government didn't do much of anything regarding all of these, but tooth decay is the one thing they care about. They did huge multi-year, multi-city studies studying tooth decay and water fluoridation. They could have spent those resources trying to figure out the root cause of the increase in tooth decay. They could have realized is the high fructose corn syrup and the carb intake and the sugar intake which is causing this new epidemic of tooth decay. But they didn't do all that. Instead, they decided they would solve the problem not by removing the additives, which are high fructose corn syrup and refined sugars. Instead, they added a new additive, fluoride, to try to fix the problem. This goes against everything the esoteric health movement stands for. The esoteric health movement stands for a return to tradition, to return to the things that we know that work, and a removal of additives which cause more harm than good. You know you have a successful PSYOP, but instead of a rational approach to your legitimate concerns, you get an irrational and fearful and even angry response. So the fear against fluoride is completely legitimate. I'm just thinking, why should the government be adding additives for medication purposes? Mass medication is not something to be taken trivially. But yet, whenever anybody raises any concern against water fluoridation, they're immediately labeled as a crank, conspiracy theorist. They're immediately dismissed out of fear and misunderstanding. Why? I mean, think about this. Most people, all they know about fluoride is the government says it's good for your teeth. So if you question that narrative, you question perhaps it may not be that good for our teeth in the first place, number one, and two, it might have other effects which have nothing to do with teeth and instead have to do with the brain, the immediate response for the most of the general public is going to be, well, what else am I thinking? What else am I assuming which is actually incorrect? And this causes unease. This causes a breakdown of assumptions. It's like when you pull a card down from the bottom of the card stack and the entire stack comes crumbling down. That's what happens when it comes to talking about water fluoridation. It's such a foundational thing that we think about when you think about public health efforts, and to undermine that undermines all of public health. And this is why there's so much resistance against talking about this topic. Not that that's going to stop me though. But I want to reiterate that this channel has never been about spreading propaganda or fear or anything like that. The fact of the matter is I have some facts which I want to share with you. I have some insights which I want to share with you. Observations which I've made. You can make up your own mind, and I'll give you mitigation strategies which I have used and I recommend. Fear and mistrust of the overlords or the puppet masters, the matrix, etc. is completely useless. You aren't going to be able to make a massive change in those constructions, those entrenched forces. But what you can do is affect your daily life, your friends and family's daily life, and that's all I'm recommending. To arrive at the conclusions that I'm arriving to, I use what's called the PSYOP method: science, intuition, observation, and philosophy. So first, let's look at what the science has to say. Two things pique my curiosity. First, that fluoride is known to accumulate in the pineal gland. Second, that there seems to be a link between lower IQ among the children born from women exposed to fluoride as compared to women who are not exposed to fluoride. Looking first at the pineal gland issue, we barely understand the pineal gland. Hell, we barely understand the brain in general. So what is going on here? It seems that calcification happens due to a variety of reasons, including just a normal part of aging. But the fluoride goes ahead and uses the existing calcium to bind to, and now we have not only calcification of the pineal gland, but also a buildup of fluoride. In fact, the most fluoride saturated organ of the body is not the teeth or bones, it's actually the pineal gland, which boggles the mind. It's like, why are we adding this to our water supply? Then the question of, is fluoride really essential for tooth health? Answer is no. Most of Europe doesn't fluoridate their water. I'll link to the countries which do fluoridate their water. Now, fair enough, Europeans get their fluoride from toothpaste. So am I against toothpaste fluoridation or not? That's a different question, which I'll get to. But the fact of the matter is, water fluoridation isn't actually that effective or important when it comes to tooth health. So we have this effect on the pineal gland that we know of. We also know that the effect on tooth decay is minimal, if anything. So the risk to reward ratio is already poor. And then we look at what's actually going on again in IQ. Before we even get to IQ, there's something interesting that I want to point out. The rate of calcification of the pineal gland is actually twice in males what it is in females. And we don't know why. Like, even the best scientists in this field don't really know why. We barely understand these things. And when we don't understand something, the last thing we should do is tamper with it. Now, going more deeply into the IQ issue, what's going on here? Again, there seems to be an effect more on males than females, which, again, scientists don't understand why. I don't understand why. It seems to be happening, but it's not clear why this is happening. What the information I'm drawing from is coming from a 2019 paper, which shows that there's almost a 5-point decrease among males who've been exposed to fluoride as an infant in their mother's womb, and a 3.66 decrease in females when they're exposed to fluoride concentrations in the mother's womb. Why this is happening is still unexplained, and the paper is actually pretty good. They control for other pollutants, they control for mercury, lead, and other known neurotoxins so that they can isolate the effect of fluoride, and they still found this lowering of IQ. I already know there's going to be a whole bunch of comments at this point saying, well, fluoride is actually present in nature. Well, yes it is, but that's not what you're getting in your tap water. So understand this. Magnesium fluoride, yes, it's present in nature. Calcium fluoride, yes, it is. Some small amounts of sodium fluoride, yes. The fact of the matter is, hydrofluorosilicic acid, which is what they use in the water salination, water treatment plants, is not something present in nature. It is an industrial byproduct. It's an industrial waste. It is a byproduct of either aluminum production or fertilizer production, so phosphate fertilizer production. So it's a waste product, which is why the government gets it for so cheap. And that's what they use in the plants. They use to create the fluorides which they put in your water. Why are they doing this, and why is it so acceptable that they do this? The calcification of the pineal gland issue especially is very concerning to me. You see, the pineal gland, again, like I said, is poorly understood, but we know for a fact that it does have a huge effect on sleep cycles. It has a huge effect on menstrual cycles. It's a very, very important gland. It has important functions when it comes to sexual health. So what's going on here? We cannot mess with this gland which we barely understand by adding fluorides which shouldn't be there, and then hope that it's all okay just because it's good for our teeth. The hubris, the absolute madness and hubris which goes into the decision-making process of the scientists/government is mind-boggling to me. We have to be extremely careful when it comes to things relating to the human body, especially the brain. Think about this. The most complex organ, or the most complex structure on the face of the earth and probably in the universe as we know it, is the brain. Some of you are already pulling out papers saying fluoride is safe. You misunderstand the point that I'm making. The point I'm making is philosophical. So there is clearly some mud in the water. There are some doubts as to whether fluoride is actually safe for all organ systems in the body. Understand this, there's a principle called informed consent in the medical sciences. You only provide medication to people who provide informed consent. The only two exceptions are, one, for children who aren't able to provide informed consent, so their guardian or parent provides informed consent. And then of course we have the extreme elderly who, again, for the same reasons, you have guardians providing informed consent. Informed consent means you understand the risks and the rewards of a treatment program, and knowing those risks and rewards, you say yes. When it comes to fluoride, even the top scientists don't understand fully what it does to the body. So none of us are really in a position to give informed consent. But the government deems it okay to add this medication to the water regardless of this principle. So it's a violation of a medical principle. And then we have the Hippocratic Oath. Doctors take the Hippocratic Oath. It's an oath which says, do no harm. First, do no harm. It means when you do a medical intervention, your first priority is to make sure that you're not causing harm in the due course of your medical intervention. So what's going on with the fluoridation systems? Yeah, you could say that it does help our teeth, which I have some doubts about that, but let's say it does help our teeth. It does harm other organ systems. You violate the Hippocratic Oath, you are potentially doing harm. So both philosophical principles are violated. And then we have, of course, the idea that the brain is a complex system. Probably it's the most complex system that we know of. And then when you take into account that society, what is society? Society is a network effect of millions and billions of brains, right? Brains are already impeccably designed and amazingly complex. You take those and you have a network effect, and that's what society is. We barely understand these things. It's extreme hubris which says you can add things to protect our teeth which could have other effects on society and our brains. So for those philosophical reasons, I'm very, very negative towards the idea of mass medication. And this is the crux of the esoteric health movement. We're finding out that the cutting-edge science backs up ancient traditions. It's finding out that there are secrets hidden from us. The common people simply don't know various facts about what they consume. I'm planning to make one mini course per month for this exclusive community. And the first I'm thinking of is, of course, testosterone boosting and esoteric health. But later on, I would like to do a course on being a synthesizer, which is what I'm doing right now. I'm synthesizing knowledge from a variety of sources and bringing it together in an easily understood and narrative fashion with storytelling so that you retain the information which you're learning. We talked about some of the bad stuff, but there is good news too. There was a study done on mice brains. Well, mice are not a perfect proxy for the human brain, obviously, but they are pretty good because they're mammals. So they took mice brains and they studied what happens if they remove fluoride completely from their diet and water. And what they found is actually the pineal gland cells start to grow once you remove fluoride. So that's a very good sign for us. It means that if we cut out the fluorides from our diet and water, it actually might help us grow our own pineal glands back and might reverse some of the damage which was done. So the question becomes, well, how do you do this? How do you cut out the fluoride from the water? I will give you all the information you need to know regarding mitigation at the end of this video. We talked about science and philosophy. Now it comes to intuition. What does my intuition say? Well, one thing, everything just feels off about the whole fluoride thing. The fact that the government cares so much about, well, our tooth decay and doesn't really care about diabetes, cancer and obesity is very concerning to me, and it just is a red flag to me. This is intuition. This is not science. I'm not proving something with evidence. This is my gut feeling that what's going on here isn't correct. So I'm trying to separate out the science and my own feelings. I don't want to necessarily bias the science, right? So another thing is the evolutionary angle behind this. Humans have been around for millions of years. Why is it suddenly that we need fluoride to keep our teeth safe? If you look at the fossil record, this is interesting. You actually see the best quality teeth, the strongest teeth, strongest skulls in pre-agricultural human beings. So before agriculture was invented, that was when humans were the most healthy. So agriculture does not actually help the human condition. It was actually when people were hunting for their food that people were more healthy, looking at bone structure, looking at teeth health. But even then, really think about this. So in caveman times, like prehistoric and even the Bronze Age times, even after agriculture, if people didn't have teeth by the age of 10, if people's teeth were rotting off by the age of 10 or 15, then humans wouldn't have made it this far, right? Humans wouldn't have made it this far if teeth literally just rotted and fell out from ages 10 to 15, which was what was happening in the mid-90s. And of course, instead of looking at the root cause, which was probably high fructose corn syrup and carbohydrate intake increase, they found an artificial solution for an artificial problem. They found an industrial solution for an industrial problem. This is backwards. What they should have done is gone right to the source and then cut the source. They didn't do this, and this is a failure on a monumental level. We talked about science, we talked about philosophy and intuition. Now we come to the observations. What did I observe when I cut out fluorides from my water supply? So here's something interesting. I didn't connect the dots when it first happened because it's a very, very, very slow process when you come off the fluoride, right? I cut out the fluoride from the water and I was looking for non-fluoridated toothpaste, and I bought one, I used it, I was looking for a different one. I looked at the reviews on Amazon for one of the non-fluoridated toothpaste, and what I learned was a lot of people in the reviews were saying that they were able to dream better. And I remember thinking, Yeah, I felt the same thing. I saw the same benefit. I found that I was dreaming more nights, like I was able to retain my dreams, remember my dreams for more nights. And I realized that all these people who are doing the non-fluoridated toothpaste, they probably were like me, being skeptical of the fluoridation of our water and probably used fluoride filters as well. So a large collection of people, all of them had the same result, which was a result in deeper and better sleep, which makes sense because I talked about the pineal gland before, and the pineal gland has a huge effect on our sleep cycles. So perhaps, now of course this is just a hypothesis, right? This is not a scientific study, and I don't claim to make a scientific theory on this topic. I'm just saying that a large number of people, when they came off fluoride, are dreaming better. And that's all I need to know. That's enough for me, that's enough observation for me to recommend this to you. Over the past 8 months, or maybe even 9 months, I've been practicing an esoteric oral hygiene routine. If you want that video, put it in the comments below. Did you know that Listerine was literally a psychological operation? Listerine is not a mouthwash, it's a floor cleaner. The company which made Listerine rebranded and resold a floor cleaner as a mouthwash with very clever marketing. In fact, I think the word halitosis, which is bad breath, was literally coined by them to make bad breath sound like a scary disease rather than just what it is. It's a common problem. And instead of addressing, again, root causes of probably carb intake and high fructose corn syrup, they decided to sell a literal floor cleaner as a mouthwash. And get this, Listerine actually doesn't help halitosis. Listerine has alcohol in it, which dries out your mouth, which causes imbalances of microbes in your mouth. There's the gut microbiome, which I'm sure you've heard of. There's also the mouth microbiome. And I don't even want to go into what fluoride does to the mouth microbiome. But the fact of the matter is, Listerine actually destroys your mouth microbiome and reduces saliva output. And that causes bad breath in the mouth. So I will give you my entire oral hygiene routine if you ask for it in the comments. But don't worry about it, I'll give you your esoteric skincare before I do that. But jumping back into philosophy for a second, who does the burden of proof lie on? This is a very important concept in philosophy. For example, in criminal courts, the burden of proof lies on the accuser. The accuser has to prove that the guilty is guilty, only then is a punishment meted out. That's not the case when it comes to our health and additions to our health, like artificial additions to our health. The burden of proof lies in the claim that they should add X, Y, and Z to our diet to make us healthier. Because more often than not, additions harm us. So we should be extra skeptical. The burden of proof should lie on those who want to change the status quo. It is not up to us to prove that fluoride is unsafe. It is up to them to prove that fluoride is safe. Not only safe, but safe for every single person and every single organ system in every single body. It's only then that we can allow this to be added to public water supply, because they literally force you to drink this. Understand this, it's going to take you about $200 to get the fluoride out of your water. I haven't even got into the mitigation section yet, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to cost $150 to $200 for you to get your water purified. So the government is adding this stuff to our water and then charging essentially $200 to get it out. This is simply unfair. It is an example of government overreach. Finally, here we are at the mitigation section, the actionable steps. What do you actually do? Like, what do you physically do and what purchases can you make, right? I'll tell you. First thing, charcoal filters. So charcoal filters are those Brita charcoal filters you attach on your taps. Unfortunately, they don't do a great job of removing fluoride from your water. They do an excellent job of removing estrogenic substances from your water. So if all you can afford is the cheap $40 charcoal filter, you should still get one. It's still worth your time, still worth your money. There's literal birth control estrogenics in your water. Do you know that? The water filtration plants don't remove birth control from the water. So women who take birth control, they pee those molecules out of their body that goes into a water supply, and the water treatment plant does not filter these substances out when you drink them. So you're literally drinking birth control estrogenics which come out of a woman's pee. The effects that it has on the male body and also the female body is something you will see in a different video. If you want that video, let me know. And then we come back to the mitigation section, right? So you should buy a charcoal water filter if that's all you can afford. That's fine, do it, because there's a difference between the estrogenics and the fluoride. So the estrogenics have an immediate effect on your body. The fluoride actually is a build-up process. It takes some time to accumulate and then become toxic. So you have some time. If you're too broke right now to afford a better filter, get the charcoal filter and then stop being broke. Like, you gotta make money. This is not a money-making channel. Find the right guys, the right channels which teach you how to make money, and start making money that you can afford an RO system. A reverse osmosis system is what I recommend. A reverse osmosis system removes up to 95% of the fluoride in your water. So if you can spend 200 bucks and get an RO filter, that's exactly what you should do. And of course, not just the fluoride, right? The RO filter is going to remove the estrogenics and other substances as well. So you should absolutely invest in that. Spending $200 on an RO filter is far more beneficial than spending it on like supplements or something like that. And the other alternative is a water distiller. This is the ultimate option. Now the RO filter is very convenient because you just turn on a tap and you get clean water. A distiller is more hard to use, but it is very efficient. The difference between an RO filter and distiller is distiller literally removes everything from the water. So maybe you lose out on some minerals and electrolytes by doing that. But a distiller, it's also about 150 to 200 US dollars. It will evaporate the water and then condense it so that you have pure H2O, pure water, as pure as you can get it anyway. But the thing is, if you use a distiller, you need to add electrolytes back into the water for you to actually use it. Don't drink distilled water, like it'll actually harm you. You need distilled water plus electrolytes for it to be absorbed better by the body. Understand that you are at the cutting edge. You are at the forefront of the esoteric health movement. You need to watch my video on seed oils, which is a whole different topic. You should check that video out.